Well, welcome to a new Harry's Farm video, and my goodness, there's a lot to cover in this one. I'm going to be just looking quickly at what's happening in London next week, 19th. I'm going to be discussing Harvest 2024 because I've got all the numbers in now, what the wheat was sold for and the profitability and that sort of thing. Then I'm going to look at 2025 crops. The big change this year, we've got all these SFI and countryside stewardship schemes and what that then means for the profitability of the farm, and a sort of different focus and a general look into the future and what on earth is going on with farming at the moment, because there's a whole load of hidden costs in the budget that people didn't pick up on immediately, and that's going to have a big effect, I think, on farming going forward. But first off, what is happening, the aftermath of the 2024 budget and this inheritance tax, agricultural property relief, business property relief, and the furore that just seems to keep on going. I'm amazed how often it is coming up in newspaper articles, on the TV. It is not going away, much as Rachel Reeves and probably Steve Reed would love it to go away. It is not going away, and farmers are fuming over it, and there's general support for it, even though it's quite contentious if you look at the numbers and valuations of farms, and surely they can afford that. God, you're sitting on this huge amount of money. There is this protest taking place in London next week, say Tuesday 19th of November. Unfortunately, I am out of the country. I'm not able to attend, but I've been talking to the organisers quite regularly. And yeah, I think there's going to be big numbers there. There's the NFU event where that's topped out at 1,800 people. But the other marches are all around. I know they're going to have speakers there, and there's this food bank idea as well. And you have to register for it. Put it in the details of this video where you have to register, and they're doing that because they want us to keep on the good side of the Met, and everybody knows how many people are going to be there. That's the reason for registering. And I think as time has gone on, it's becoming increasingly obvious that the Treasury was not using the correct figures for the number of farmers going to be affected by this, these family farms. And I saw a very interesting article yesterday on the reasons why that was. And it's all down, they did all their assumptions on how many estates had used agricultural property relief back in 21-22, whatever the reference year was, ignoring whether they had claimed also at the same time business property relief as well. And when you unfortunately are in that position and having to look at the value and pass on, you have all the value, which I explained last time, in your machinery, in your buildings, as well as the land and the house, etc. And these estates tend to make a claim on both business property relief and agricultural property relief. But the Treasury completely ignored the business property relief, which would have included all the machinery, all your stock if you're a dairy farm, all the cattle, and sheep if you're a hill farmer. All that is in business property relief. Agricultural property covers purely the house and the land, but farming, an active farm, combines both values of those two enormous values, as I pointed out. And there's some better figures now from CLA showing that how many farms are going to be affected by this. And it's that bit that there is no time to organise for the estates that are close to handover to do the 7-year GIF, which isn't that straightforward anyway, to do that in time before its introduction in April 2026. And if you add it all up, if they keep it as it is, a huge number of farms are affected by it. And there is also a dramatic increase in the amount of money it's going to raise. They're 500 million. Forget that. There's so many estates affected. Depends what happens. And the mental anguish, I think, for the older generation who were at the point of handover and didn't have to worry about this until she stood up and read that budget out, I think is awful for mental health. And that early few months of 26, knowing, imagine waking up third week of March, say, oh God, I'm still alive. If I'm still alive come April, next week of April, the family are going to have to pay $1 million or something inheritance tax. I just can't believe it. That is why they're fuming. And also because there's so many other things in the budget that are affecting farmers. It's constant, and they just can't leave us alone. For some reason, they've decided farmers are number one enemy when it comes to net zero, and food security doesn't matter, but that's a whole different window. But that's basically the anger in the farming community. Right, let's get back to harvest 24 and the numbers and what happened this year. The wheat yield in total tonnage that moved off the farm, 660 tonnes. That was actually 70 tonnes less than budget this time last year, what I expected it to yield. And we sold it at the pool price was £183.60 for harvest movement. That's pretty good. If I was to sell wheat today for February movement, so almost 6 months after I actually moved it off the farm, I would only be getting £180. So 183 at harvest is above average, and I'm very pleased that it's ADM pool I use, and it's come out better than expected all the years I've been using it. So I'm going to continue using them. But that then, with the costs involved, the acreage we did, we had profit on farm of £32,190 before any drawings, tax, interest, anything like that. But it does include the contract charge for spraying and drilling, because I treat those as a variable cost rather than a fixed cost, because I don't have to do that many sprays. That's how I view it. It doesn't include any cost for servicing the combine or anything like that. That is a fixed cost that has to come out of that number. And £32,190 for 24 harvest is all right, but because we were 70 tonnes short, everyone was yields were down around 10-12%. I was the same. That took £12,000 off that number. So I had hoped for 44,000 and I ended up with 32,000. But if I look back at 2023, we made a loss of £15,660. We were very unfortunate last year. We had a crop failure with oilseed rape and it decimated profitability, as you can see. So that is an upswing of £47,000 over last year, profitability wise. So yeah, harvest 24 was okay. Harvest 25, well, we'll go into detail on that in a moment, but this is going to be harvest 25. This is the wheat that's gone in, and I'm very pleased to say it's all grown, all the rows are up. This is the rolled field. I wish all the fields looked like this. This is normally not a very good field, but it yielded all right last year. It was above the average, and I should say the yield last year was, I think it's about 2.7 tonnes, but that is overall, that's tonnes per acre. That is over everything we drilled, and there was about 10-15 acres that had no crop on it because of that terrible rain last year. October 23 on, it just rained forever and we flooded out and we did lose some of the wheat, but I'm costing it over the total area actually drilled, not on the total area harvested. That's just a technicality. So wheat for 25 at the moment looks good. I'm going to show you a field that doesn't look quite as good as this, and I also want to just show you a bit down here, which is my AB8 area. This is what's different for this 25 harvest, is I've taken these areas out of lower yielding land and put them into this AB8, which is flower rich margins, grass margins in effect, and I spun this on. Now when all this went in, it was, I should know, I flashed it up. I think it's 8th of October, 6th of 8th of October. The grass went in earlier, this went in middle of September. But that is when we had a huge amount of rain, and yeah, this land is very free draining here, so it's okay, but it wasn't ideal to say the least. And you can see the grass has come up, but it's all these sort of, it's meadowfescue, it's sort of not aggressive ryegrass type of grass, but I can see it is growing, and we'll just have to wait and see what this looks like come the spring. If we have to top it up, I don't know until we get there. I'll go through the sort of the reasons for doing it somewhere else, but I just want to show you a bit more of the wheat, and then we'll have a look at my problem field, and then we'll go into the numbers for 25 harvest. Right, this field doesn't look quite as good as the others. This was drilled at the same time, but this is when it was just still a bit sticky, the land. and I couldn't really get on it and roll it and that sort of thing. But it's actually all coming up pretty well now. Looks a green haze all the way up. I can see lines, and we had to put a couple doses of slug pellets on this because we didn't roll it, and this is a bit knobbly so I could find slugs quite easily. But we have actually put the pre-em spray on it. I just wanted to show you here. You can sort of see how it works. I know that weed has taken it up because you can see the sort of white heart on it. That tells me that that has been zapped by the herbicide as it's grown through, and we put on the spray before anything has come up, so that comes through that layer, the top of the soil, and that's the indication that it's actually working. So that's good news. And I've explained before, it's quite easy. They're termed broadleaf weeds because they're not a grass weed, and wheat is basically a glorified grass, so it's much harder to get the weed grass out of wheat than the broadleaf weeds. But I can't show you any sort of black grass or anything here because there isn't any to show you, but that would be also just dying back, but it's hard to spot in this. One thing I can spot though is down there, it was a bare patch, and it's a small area, but this was drilled for October, and then we had a monster amount of rain. We had about 80 mil of rain all in a day and a bit, and that actually came up, the water came up, and there was a little puddle there, and it disappeared again. But I have since learnt that if wheat is put in, you put it in a glass or something, fill it up with water and leave it 24 hours submerged in water, and then drain the water off and try and plant it, it doesn't grow. And that's exactly what's happened there. If I go around the trail, I can find the wheat in there, and it just hasn't germed. But I know there's no issue with the germination of it because the rest of the field's germed, and that's just unfortunate, but it's not a big enough area to really worry about. Anyway, I've got another issue with another field, and that's over there. Right, this is my tricky field for 25 harvest. This is the field that we tried to drill at the same time as all the others, and we all got in a bit of a mess, and I could only do about half the field, and it wasn't at all pretty. And that's that bit here. This bit is now all drilled, and we've changed drills. Rather than that Claydon drill with that tine going through, we used a new disc drill, a direct drill like we demoed last year, and it has a completely different look to it when you use one of those. You can see how the disc is sort of cut a slot in right through all this straw here. It's not a very good place to show it here, but there is a slot there. It then fills in the slot, but you can sort of see how sticky that ground. That isn't, it's not something we could work the soil. This probably looks better here. You can sort of see how it looks, and it squashes it in the cut it makes, and you also see some slug pellets that we put on as well. So we've also in here we've re-drilled some of the badly drilled area from last time. So this is all re-drilled here. It's a bit frustrating, and I can't get over how kind the weather has been in November. Last November it was just ridiculously wet, not a chance of doing this, but this year, well, I just have to wait and see. But it hasn't rained for several weeks now, so this won't be coming up until end of November into December. We've got a cold weather coming next week, so we'll just keep an eye on it, but it looks a lot prettier than it did a few weeks ago. Now I'm going to take you to my projected most profitable field for next year. Well, this is my budgeted most profitable field for 25 harvest, and you'll notice there's nothing growing in it because this is AB6. This is enhanced winter stubble, as it's termed. I entered a new countryside stewardship scheme last year, and this is what's happening. So we are not growing a crop on this field, or the one next to it, or the one beyond it. And this is the big change for 25. The acres we are actively farming and will be combining have dropped from, we're around 350 acres 2020-21. We're now, this harvest coming will be 118 acres. Dramatic drop. All the rest of the land is in some form of environmental scheme, an SFI scheme, a countryside stewardship. I went for countryside stewardship because I was actively looking before the new SFI rates came in. I knew I'd had a really bad year in 23. I was not going to repeat it. As I've said many times, this farm is a business, and yeah, that's what I've done. So if I just look at the budget figures, it's always worth doing as a reminder, It was £32,190 profit in 24 actual. The budget for 25 tells me that the farming we are doing on the reduced acres should still produce £26,206. So you think, oh, it's less, but I actually have 30 hectares of this AB6, and what's interesting is I do nothing to it. The combine has gone out of this field and we're not allowed to do anything else, and it just grows naturally, whatever's in the soil. And some of the other fields over at the other farm are really growing up. There's charlock and all sorts of things. This is just quietly greening up. There's quite a lot of grassweed in here. I can do nothing about that until the 15th of May. That's the instruction from the government. And all these things, this is not Labour, this is Conservative government brought in all these schemes. And that's where they signed up. But the Labour government is supporting it at the moment. Who knows what might happen? But it's a 5-year scheme. So the 15th of May, I come in here, I will glyphosate this and then cultivate it up and grow a first wheat. So this has replaced growing oilseed rape, shall we say, on this farm, or beans or anything. All those break crops gone, because this pays £589 a hectare. Spraying glyphosate operations about £40 a hectare. So yeah, it's going to be £549 net to me. If I look back at what the wheat achieved last year, net profit per acre, it was £135 an acre. Not growing a crop, putting it to AB6, it's more profitable than me trying to go through all the operations, cultivating this, putting a seed in, spraying it, harvesting it, selling it on in the world market. So it's quite obvious, I would hope, why I'm going in this direction. If I look what's happening for 25, this is it's a big change for me. I've had 40 years of harvest, but I have de-risked the farm. Now those area payments that we used to get from when we were in the EU, and they continue for a few years, they drop off in 2 years' time. That was like a safety net. That was why we continued to grow crops through bad years and good years, and we could take it, and you had cheap food because I had the safety net of the area payment. That has gone. So I am now looking, what does this farm, how do I keep this farm going, de-risk it so I do not expose myself to another 23 harvest or a 2020 harvest. I can't do that anymore. It's too high a risk. Bank just won't accept it. The returns are so low that it's a crazy risk business, farming at the best of times, especially when it's arable. You know, if I look back at that harvest this year, profit of 32,000, that 15,660 of that goes to replacing the loss of last year. So I've got another year to get back to where I should be, really. That's how it works. So I am now focused on profitability, looking at the schemes, how they fit into the farm, and I want to show you some of the things we're going to be doing on Harry's farm in the future away from farming, because I can't show you the crops because there's hardly any crops. So what are we going to be doing? Well, let's have a look at that, which is just over there. So this is some of the area I'm going to be into. This wood here was planted by guys who we bought the farm from. They put this in 1977. It's amazing. Look at the size of some of these trees. But we haven't, when we first got the farm 20 years ago, you had to crawl through here and it was really tight, and there's too many trees now in, and we want to just tidy it up. There's quite a lot to do. You can see some old dead cherries. As the more mature trees have gone up, they've sort of shielded it, and some have need removing now and just thinning out and just tidying up in here really. But yeah, so this is part of what we're going to be doing in 25. The other thing I've got is I've got about 350 metres of new hedge to put in this winter as well. So we're going to be doing that actually over the next few weeks. And this is the new direction really for Harry's farm, because the amount of farming we're actually going to do has dramatically reduced. It's less than half from what we were doing 3 years ago. But I want to take that time to sort of do these areas, the other part of owning land and what you do with it. I'd like to expand the woodland. I'd like to get more woods on it. And if I look forward, what's going to be happening? It's just weird that my main focus is not on food production. Food security, always in the news, government keeps talking about it, doesn't seem to be of interest. We look at how much oilseed rate has dropped off. I mean, it's enormous numbers this year. It's down 36% over last year already, and yeah, it's a 40-year low come harvest 2025. Massive difference. We're going to be about 660,000 tonnes grown against a consumption of 2 million tonnes is how much we consume in this country. That is a 600 million deficit for the balance of trade. That was the most important thing when I was growing up. Now it doesn't seem to ever get a mention. They're very happy to import all this food. I can't battle that. I've just got to look at the little patch I do, how I can make it work, and this is the new direction. And I've got 5 years in this scheme. We're going to have that enhanced stubble. So it's not until 2030 we'll be back in production. But I suspect by then I'm actually going to be farming carbon. And that is what I'm going to investigate these next few years while we're not farming the whole farm. Because I think by then it's going to be, if they continue on their net zero projection, they want us to lock up carbon. So I think that, I can't fight it, but that is what we're going to be rewarded on rather than food production. Don't agree with it. It's very odd as a farmer to be saying that, but I think that is the direction we're heading into. And the other thing in the budget they quietly slipped in, it was a tax on nitrogen fertiliser that hits in 2027. And that is going to cost around, they say £50 a tonne, I think it's going to be nearer £80 to £100 a tonne of nitrogen fertiliser, which is going to significantly put up the price of nitrogen and make it less profitable again to grow wheat crops, and especially so oilseed rape, because that's the greediest one for nitrogen. And again, it puts us at a disadvantage to the rest of the world, because for Europe getting 5% charge in 2027, and it tapers up until the full hit, I think, in 2034. But no, Keir Starmer wants to reduce 100% of it in 2027. So again, it's going to have a dramatic effect on the profitability of the farm, and that's another reason why I'm looking away from food production. I feel really sorry for the livestock boys, because they haven't got as many options as we've been offered on the arable areas in England. They still don't know the headage payments. Are they going to introduce those? And the weirdness is, if I was actually really into this and didn't have an outside business to look after, I'd be looking at herbal lays, getting livestock on the farm and introducing nitrogen and organic matter on the land that way. But it is highly labour intensive, but I just haven't got the time, and it's high risk again. It's employing people, and you're loading up a load of costs, and it's tricky. So I'm just pausing the next few years on the whole farming front, looking after the farm, just looking at the direction of travel with which government's in power, what they want us to do, what they're rewarding farmers for. So yeah, there you go. I hope you found this Harry's Farm interesting. It does, I hope, update you and show you the confusion amongst farming and what we're doing, which way we're being led. We were very happy just getting on producing food, but no, there's been a huge amount of interference, and this is the result. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing, more videos coming on very soon.